Good morning, grade 12s. This is Mr. M. Khato from Itukisesembokamoso in Hope House. Today's session is all about the helpful hints and the tips for paper 1. Later today, Mr. Nchakas will be here for paper 2. Okay, I think first of all I would like to say, before I can start with the discussion about our subject is geography. This subject is very easy subject. You fail because you want to fail it. Geography is easy to pass, difficult to fail. Thank you very much. So most of the time we don't fail because, or we fail not because we don't know the content. It is because we commit many simple errors. So these are the errors that I'm going to try to eliminate in this session. Okay, first of all, let us look on how to approach the theory exam question paper. First of all, make sure that you bring all the necessary stationery and equipment into the examination center. With stationery, I refer to things such as make sure that you have a pen, in fact 2 pens or 3 pens if it comes to a push. Make sure that you have a ruler, you have a pencil. And the second thing that you need to bring to make sure that you have checked that you have received the question paper, annexure and answer booklet. Just make sure. If ever the invigilator did not give you these 3 things, something is wrong. You must have the question paper, you must have the annexure or addendum, as well as the answer booklet. Thirdly, ensure that the question paper and annexure actually have the number of pages indicated on their front covers. It is indicated that this question paper or annexure has got this number of pages. Okay, and number 4, use the reading time that is allocated to you, that is 10 minutes before the start of the examination, and the time that is given to you is approximately 10 minutes to read it through the entire paper. This is where you are going to make a decision. Later on, I'm going to tell you the structure of the paper. You are going to make a decision which questions to start with and how many. All in all, you have to answer 3 questions out of 4. So we'll come to that later on. Number 5, go through the annexure and the question paper at the same time. Do not read them separately. Some people make a mistake of trying to answer the question paper without looking at the annexure because they relate to one another. Number 6, use the reading time to decide which 3 questions you will answer. 3 questions out of 75. Each one is 75 marks, and 75 by 3 is 225 marks. So number 7, answer the questions that you think you will score the highest mark first. Start if question 3 is the one that you know best, start with question 3 and then you will go to others. Okay, number 8, you may answer your 3 questions in any order. If you start with question 4, please make sure that you number correctly. Don't change the numbering system that is on the question paper. The next one, if you cannot answer a particular part of the question, leave it out, leave the space, and you will return to it later on. And then number 10, use the mark allocation as a guide to the length and the detail of your answer. If the mark allocation is 1 mark, don't just a full paragraph for 1 mark. Let me do this. If the question is 8 marks, make sure that you answer as enough for 8 marks, because the 8 mark questions normally is a discussion question. So allocate 15 minutes to answer each question. Move on to the next question when that time is up. Right? Number 12, you will then have 30 minutes at the end to check your paper and complete any unanswered questions. Okay, now let us look at the general tips. The general tips are all about sometimes you don't fail because you don't know the content. You fail because you don't understand the question. So identify the key verb or question word in each question. We'll come to this later on because it is important. Again, the next thing, adhere to the mark allocation. Don't give more information than you are asked for. You only have 15 minutes, remember, per question. The next point is that use colored pencils or highlighters to underline the most important facts in text or passages or tables. So please make sure that you don't fail. Use labeled sketches wherever possible to enhance your explanation or the value of your answers. Next one, plan your longer paragraph type style questions. Label it as rough work, not to be marked. You must plan. It is important to plan candidates, grade 12s. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So next one, use statistics and information from an exam to support your answer. I think that one is clear. Use geographical terminology wherever possible and don't generalize or use discriminatory language. Do not panic. This is important. Some of you suffer from anxiety, especially when you enter the examination. Do not panic if the paper contains something you have never heard or seen before. Apply what you know. Apply what you do know, and remember that the source material contains plenty of clues. So please read through your annexure or your addendum. Sometimes it may help you to remember whatever that you have forgotten. So the next point, be prepared to answer mapwork questions in the theory exam. For an example, you may be expected to determine distance or direction. Thank you very much. We'll go to the next part of our discussion, which is about the points to remember when the examination terminology. Remember I said about it earlier on that we fail not because we don't understand the question, but we fail because we don't understand. We don't fail because we don't understand, because we don't have the content, but we fail because we can't interpret the questions correctly. So these are what we call the question words or the key words. The question words as a guideline when answering the questions. So the first word here that we have is the word analyze. When you analyze, what you are supposed to do, you need to separate, you need to break down or examine and interpret the information. So you will be analyzing. So please don't panic, like I said earlier. Secondly, calculate. When you calculate, this means a numerical value is needed or an answer is required. You must not show your work. You must show your working, especially if 2 or more steps are involved. You must calculate. So a numerical value must be used or a number. Classify. Group things based on common characteristics. Yes, you classify them. If you are to classify the characteristics or the impact based on the human impact or environmental impact, be able to do so. Group things based on common characteristics. So we go to the next one, compare. Sometimes we take words such as compare for granted, but sometimes we commit mistakes when we are to compare. Point out by showing the similarities and differences between things, concepts and phenomena. Phenomena is nothing else but things. Okay, we go to the next one, define. With a definition, you give a clear meaning. I think this one is clear. And then we go to the next one, describe. You state in words using diagrams where appropriate the main points of a structure, process, phenomenon, investigation. Go to the next one, determine. To calculate something or to discover the answer by examining evidence. Differentiate. Use differences to qualify categories. You use what? The differences. You differentiate between two concepts. Maybe you differentiate between a tropical cyclone and mid-latitude cyclone. What is it that you need to do? You give us the differences. You classify them. Right, discuss, consider all information and reach a conclusion. So we go to the next one, explain, make clear, interpret and spell out. I think that one is clear. So identify, name the essential characteristics. Characteristics are important. You must be able to say what makes this phenomenon to differ from other phenomena. Right, label, identify on a diagram or drawing. On an annexure or addendum, you might be given a structure with letters or numbers. You must be able to identify those that are shown on the diagram or a drawing. List, you write a list of items with no additional detail. Mention, refer to relevant points. Name, give the name of something or proper noun. And then we go to the next one. After naming, we can state or give. Write down information without a discussion. You don't have to go overboard. Just write down information without discussing that particular information. Suggest, offer an explanation or a solution. Come up with suggestion to something. Tabulate, draw a table and indicate the answer as direct pairs. Right, that will be the last one under our key questions or Q questions. Right, we go to the structure of the paper. The paper one, the one that we are going to write in the morning, will be as follows. Please make sure that you familiarize yourself with this information. Right, paper one, theory. This is the paper that we are going to write at 9 o'clock on the 3rd of December. So this is a 3-hour paper, but let us look at what I'm having here for. This is a 3-hour paper and will be written first on the day of geography examination. I refer to this paper as the breakfast. Remember, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So if you miss your breakfast, you are not going to have a great day. So this is a 3-hour paper because it is an important meal of the day. It is the biggest paper that you're going to write on the day, with which totals 225 marks. So number one, the paper is divided into 2 sections. We have section A, which is climate and weather. I'm going to touch on some of the most important parts that normally give us problems with these papers. Not everything because of time constraints. And then section B is settlement geography, human geography, which is settlement geography and economic geography. Section A is physical geography, and section B is human geography. And then we go number 2. Each of the 2 sections consists of 2 questions of 75 marks each. So we have question 1 and question 2. Under section A, we have question 3 and question 4 under section B. Section A, climate and weather and geomorphology. Section B, settlement geography and economic geography. Number 3, any 3 of the 4 questions must be answered. You don't answer all 4 questions. If you make a mistake of answering all 4 questions, I'm going to tell you the first 3 will be marked. Whether you got low marks in question 1, the first 3, question 1, 2, 3 will be marked, and question 4 will not be marked. Okay, we go to number 4. Each of the 4 questions will include the following. It is important to note that the short or objective type questions offer 15 marks. It will be this one. Please, this is what we call the low-lying fruit. Don't make a mistake of missing out on this 15 marks, because each and every mark counts. Each and every mark can make you to get a distinction or to pass. Okay, we go to the next bullet. 2 paragraph questions of 8 marks per question. That is 4 points multiplied by 2 marks. So you need to have, at least in a paragraph that you're going to write, make sure that you have 4 facts. Each and every fact counts for 2 marks. So that is a paragraph question. We have 2 of them in each question. So these questions may not be answered in a point form and will require analytical thinking and insight. You must be able to show us a deeper understanding of the concept that we're discussing. So we go to the next one. Number 5, a variety of source material will be used. For an example, satellite images, synoptic weather charts, graph tables, sketch maps, cartoons, photographs, and newspaper articles. You will be asked questions based on that, but you must have what we call the insight. The insight that we talked about. You must relate whatever information that you see here. You must relate it with geography. You must be able to interpret it geographically. Number 6, the instructions and information will appear on the second page of the question paper. I'm going to show you how it looks like. The instruction on each and every question paper, you must be able to adhere to those instructions at all times. Right, this is all about the paper 1. Mr. Nchangasi will come later on to do paper 2 with you. Right now, let us go to the next one, the instructions that I promised you. These are the instructions that I promised you that you will see on your question paper. You must read through these instructions. Right, number 1, this question paper consists of 4 questions. We already talked about that. Answer any 3 questions of 75 marks. For the paragraph style question, you may refer to one idea, which must discuss in depth or on different ideas, which must be discussed in less depth. Right, all diagrams are included in the annexure. Start each question at the top of a new page. Please don't be stingy with, you are going to be given a booklet. So each and every question should be on the new page. When you finish say question 1 in the center of the question, if you were to answer the next question, you go to the next page. Okay, number the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in the question paper. Don't come up with your own answering or your numbering system. Follow the one that you see on the question paper. It is important. Where possible, illustrate your answers with label diagrams. That will enhance the value of your answer. Number 8, please, people, write clearly and legibly. Don't make it difficult for the markers to mark you. Right, these are the instructions and information that you will find in each and every question paper. Without any waste of time, grade 12s, I'm going to touch on some of the things or topics that normally give us problems when it comes to answering the geography question paper. I'll start first with the first part, which is climate and weather. So this is what I have prepared for you. I'm not going to do everything because, like I said earlier, under climate and weather, I really hope that you know the difference between climate and weather. This one is the changes in the atmosphere over a longer period of time. This one happens over a short period of time on a daily basis. So it is important as a geographer to know that you must know pressure. We have two types of pressure, the high pressure and low pressure. Pressure can be high or it can be low. So high pressure cell is also known as an anticyclone. It is called anticyclone. It is a high pressure cell, anticyclone. The circulation around anticyclone is clockwise, and therefore the movement, because the pressure is high, we are going to have sinking air. But with a cyclone, it is a low pressure, the air is rising. Anticyclone, high pressure, the air is sinking. So it is important. Right, let us look at some of the characteristics of this high pressure and low pressure. High pressure with sinking air, like I said earlier, the air is sinking because the pressure is high. It rotates clockwise in the northern hemisphere and anti-clockwise in the southern hemisphere. I've already talked about that. Low pressure, because the air is lighter because of high temperatures, when the air is heated, it becomes less dense and therefore it is forced to rise. What happens to the rising air? It is cooled down adiabatically, and at a certain point the clouds can form. You can have clouds forming and subsequently you can have precipitation. But high pressure, the air is heated by compression, so there is no likelihood of clouds forming with high pressure. So in the southern hemisphere, we are going to have clockwise circulation, and in the northern hemisphere we have anti-clockwise circulation. Right, let us look at the weather conditions associated with high pressure. Because the air is descending, we are likely to have dry weather conditions. Temperature increase with 1 degree Celsius for every 100 meters of descent, because the air is descending. But with high pressure, the air is rising. We are going to have wetter, cooler weather. Remember, the higher you go, the colder it becomes. Moist air decreases. Moist air decreases in temperature at the rate of 1 degree Celsius per 100 meters. Eventually, we are likely to have the formation of clouds. Without any waste of time, let us look at the general characteristics. Characteristics are, what is it that makes this particular cyclone differ from another type of cyclone that we have? Remember, it is also known by other names. So frontal depression is one of those, because this is the only cyclone that has got fronts. Tropical cyclone does not have fronts, but mid-latitude cyclone has got fronts. That is why we refer to it as a frontal depression. or sometimes it is referred to as a temperate cyclone or extratropical cyclone. Mid-latitude cyclones are found mostly between 40 degrees and 60 degrees north and south of equator latitude line. Okay, these cyclones occur between 30 degrees and 60 degrees north in both hemispheres. Mid-latitude cyclones move from west to east, and they are driven by the westerlies. They are in the westerly wind belt. They are pushed by the westerlies. This is the work that you did in grade 11 when you were doing the pressure belt. Right, they occur all year round in both hemispheres. It is wrong to say that it occurs only in wind. No, it only affects South Africa in wind. During summer, it follows the ITCZ and it is further southward. Right, associated with warm front. Remember I said it is the only cyclone that has got front. So the fronts are warm front, it has got warm sector, the cool front, and the cool sector. Weather conditions associated with cool front are the following: overcast conditions, low temperature, because it is a cold front, surely temperatures will be low. Strong wind is one of the characteristics or weather conditions that should be attributed to the cold front. Heavy rainfall, the rainfall that we'll get from the cumulonimbus clouds, the clouds of great vertical extent, the clouds that covers tens or close to 10 to 15 kilometers from the base to the top. On the western side of the continent is where we're likely to get the influence of the mid-latitude cyclones. Right, we go to the next one. How mid-latitude cyclones form. Okay, let me do this. All right, there must be temperature contrast between the westerlies and the polar easterlies. Remember, when we look at the first stage of the development, this is the first stage that I'm talking about. You have two air masses moving in opposite direction from one another. The other one is from the northerly direction, and this one from the southerly direction, the polar easterlies and the westerlies. They are separated by what we call the polar front. The polar front is the line of separation between the warm air from the warmer latitudes and the cold air from the colder latitudes. So separated by what? By polar front. It is a zone of separation or the surface of discontinuity between these two air masses. Right, now let us proceed. There must be disturbance. Disturbance is important. Disturbance is something that causes a wave in a jet stream which pushes cold air into the warm air. So a low pressure develops when the warm air rises. Remember, low pressure is associated with rising air. So above the cold air as driven by the westerlies. Now let us look at the factors or the conditions necessary or the prerequisites for the development of mid-latitude cyclone or wave formation. The first one is the difference between land and sea temperatures, the shape of the coastline, acceleration in wind speed in any of the two air masses, the mountain ranges. Right, so we move forward. We're going to look at the stages in the development of a mid-latitude cyclone. A mid-latitude cyclone undergoes 4 stages of development. The first one is the initial stage, as you can see here. The second one is a wave stage or development stage. The third one is a mature stage, and the last one is a occluded or occlusion stage. In the occlusion initial stage, like I said earlier, initially we are having this kind of a situation where two air masses are separated by the polar front, moving in opposite direction to one another. But after the wave has been ignited by those four causes, the development, the wave, this is a wave, the formation of a wave. So the cold air is starting to move because it is heavier, it's starting to move towards the warmer air. And what happens when the cold air is moving towards the warmer air? It moves underneath the warmer air because the warmer air is lighter. So this will lead to the mature stage. Mature stage, the cold air is moving towards the warm sector. The warm front, because it is lighter, cannot push the cold air. And therefore this area covered by the warm sector is becoming smaller and smaller. It is becoming narrower and narrower because the cold air is moving underneath the warm air. So this is the occlusion stage. Occlusion occurs when the cold front has already overtaken the warm front. So let us look at this diagram that we are having here. This is the outline of South Africa. Madagascar is there. So here we have the development stage, here we have the mature stage, and here we have the occlusion or occluded stage. So when we have cyclones occurring in more than one, we refer to that as the family of cyclones. Midlatitude cyclone travel from west to east with the oldest far southeast. This is the oldest, and the youngest on northwest. They must follow each other as 3 to 5 members. When they happen like this, we refer to them as the family of depressions or cyclones. Right, this is just a summary of what happens to the mid-latitude cyclone. Ahead of a mid-latitude cyclone, cold front forces the warm air to rise. As the warm air rises, it cools down, and eventually we are going to have the formation of clouds. The type of clouds that we have ahead of a cold front is the cumulonimbus cloud, which is associated with what? Heavy rainfall, lightning, and thunderstorm. Ahead of a warm front, because the warm air is moving on top of the cold air, clouds are going to form. And the type of clouds that we should expect ahead of a warm front are stratus clouds, cumulus clouds, and also nimbostratus. I'm mentioning this one because every time when a cloud has got the prefix or the suffix nimbo or nimbus, that type of a cloud is a rain cloud. So the type of weather that we're going to have ahead of a warm front is the drizzle or light rainfall. So remember the rotation, because it is a cyclone, the rotation is clockwise in the southern hemisphere. Right, I just want to show you the difference between the mid-latitude cyclone in two hemispheres. In the northern hemisphere, it is like this. Southern hemisphere, we are going to have a mid-latitude cyclone like this. The circulation is clockwise. This is our warm front, and this is our cold front. The cold front is shown by these triangles, and warm front is shown by the semicircles. So, right, in the northern hemisphere, mid-latitude cyclones looks like this. The circulation is anti-clockwise. It is different from what we are having in the southern hemisphere. Right, now let us look at the weather patterns associated with fronts, both warm front and cold front. So this is what should be expected Cold front, weather associated with cold front, the weather conditions associated with warm front, and the warm sector weather. Without any waste of time, let us look at the first one. The first one is related to wind direction. The change in wind direction is referred to as the wind shift. With cold front, the wind backs. It changes direction from west to southwest. But warm front, ahead of a warm front, there is always a change in wind direction to the left. It also backs from northwest to west. What happened to warm sector conditions? Pressure drops. So we move to the next weather condition. Strong winds with low temperatures, because it is a cold front, so temperatures will drop obviously. Warm front, more humidity with high temperatures. Remember, it is a warm front. Obviously, temperatures will rise or will increase. What about here? As warm, less dense air. Right. We move to precipitation. Heavy rainfall is associated with cumulonimbus cloud. This is ahead of a cold front. But here ahead, like we saw earlier with the diagrams, we are likely to have light rain with nimbostratus clouds. So warm sector conditions associated with stratocumulus, altostratus, and clouds. Pressure is the next element that we are going to look at. Pressure decreases as front approaches, but rises as cold front arrives. Pressure decrease, yes, we are going to have a decrease in pressure, but rise as the cold front, because pressure relates to temperature. The higher the temperature, the lower the pressure. The lower the temperature, the higher the pressure. So remember, high temperatures, low pressure. Low temperature, high pressure. So with warm front, we are going to have, because the air is going to rise, we are going to have a decrease in air pressure as well. Right, now let us look at the most important part, which is the impact of mid-latitude cyclone, MLC, on humans and environment. The first one, strong winds from thunderstorm, hail, and some snow can destroy infrastructure and kill people and animals. This is a negative impact. When you answer long questions, paragraph type questions, you must be able to differentiate between the impacts. Sometimes the impact can be negative, can be positive. You must also look at which area is being asked to have the impact. Communication is disrupted. Shipping and aeroplanes cannot operate, and outdoor activities cannot take place as well. According to this, they said this is a positive impact. No, it is the negative. It is something negative. Right, bullet number 3. Heavy rain in the Western Cape leads to poor visibility and accidents. So obviously, when people are involved in accidents, that is negative. When people are not being able to drive the way they wanted to drive, that is negative. Very cold conditions leading to power cuts, as people will be using more power to warm themselves. So we are likely to have load shedding, which is caused by this kind of weather phenomenon. Okay, these are negative impacts. The positive impacts can include, among others, that mid-latitude cyclone brings about much needed rainfall. Especially Western Cape gets its rain in winter. So if it does not rain in winter, Western Cape will experience water outages like we have seen in the recent past. Right, mid-latitude cyclone, I'm not going to look at that one. We go to the next type of cyclone, which is the tropical cyclone. Remember I said the time is not on our side. So mid-latitude tropical cyclone, as the name indicates, is a cyclone that takes place in the tropical regions of the world around Tropic of Cancer in the Northern Hemisphere and Tropic of Capricorn in the Southern Hemisphere. These are general characteristics of tropical cyclones. They are known by other names. In and around China and Japan, they are referred to as typhoons. In Australia, willy willies. In the Indian Ocean, cyclones. Caribbean islands, the Gulf of Mexico, United States of America, they are known as hurricane. Please make sure that you notice the places around the Caribbean islands. Sometimes they may say Haiti. You must know where Haiti is. They may talk about Cuba, Jamaica, etc. It's important that you know your map. The formation, they are formed around 5 degrees and 30 degrees north and south, and does not occur at the equator because there is no Coriolis force. Occurrence, they occur over warm water over the tropics between 5 degrees and 30 degrees. They do not occur over the land. Over warm water, where the temperature of water is 27 degrees Celsius or more. Movement or direction of movement, they travel from east to west or westwards, driven by the easterly winds, the tropical easterlies. Season of occurrence, they occur late summer and early autumn, normally from February to March in the southern hemisphere. Areas affected, eastern sides of continents. Why? Because on eastern side of continents we have the warm ocean currents. Weather, intense thunderstorm, stormy vortex, and the eye. The eye is the center of this system with calm conditions. Calm conditions are nothing else but we don't have rain there, we don't have wind blowing, we don't have clouds. Rotation, in the southern hemisphere, because it is a cyclone, it is clockwise. Northern hemisphere, anti-clockwise. Lifespan, they last for about a week, 4 to 7 days, and has diameters of around 200 to 750 kilometers. This is a plan view of the mid-latitude cyclone. This whitish thing that you see here is the clouds, the cumulonimbus clouds around the eye. This is the eye where we have the calm conditions. Calm conditions is where we are experiencing no clouds. As you can see here, we don't have, this is not small, it's approximately 50 kilometers in diameter. So basically the following is the summary of tropical cyclones. So let us look at this summary. They move from east to west, driven by westerly winds. They move away from equator. In the eye, there is no wind, there is no rain, there are no clouds. So these are what we can expect in the coastal areas of the eastern part of Africa, South Africa, Mozambique, and others. Destruction caused by strong winds, flooding can also take place, torrential rain can be expected. And on reaching the land, they turn east at around 30 degrees, and where they will dissipate because the temperatures here are not as warm as they used to be, because there is no supply of moisture, temperatures are lower, there is no warm air, and because of friction. Right now, factors necessary for the formation of tropical cyclone. We are going to look at these factors. The occurs in low pressure area between 5 degrees and 30 degrees north and south, associated with heat required for uplift of air, occurs over oceans with the temperature of approximately 27 degrees Celsius do not occur at equator due to the lack of Coriolis force. So these are the characteristics. Occurs over warm oceans with 27 degrees Celsius temperature, do not occur at 0 degrees Celsius to 5 degrees Celsius, move from east to west. They occur here because for constant supply of moisture. Do not occur here because there is no Coriolis force. They move from east to west because they are driven by the trade winds, which are referred to as the tropical easterlies. Another characteristic, they die when they move inland. This is important. Why? Because the heat is removed because of friction and moisture is cut off. Remember, moisture acts like a fuel to the system. Moisture is like a fuel to tropical cyclones. So the areas where tropical cyclones form over the warm oceans, where there is uplift. Okay, we go to associated weather pattern of tropical cyclone. Associated weather patterns of tropical cyclones. Right. They are associated with, allow me to do this. They are associated with dangerous weather conditions, with worse conditions on mature stage. Right, we move to the next. They destroy property, environment, and loss of life. Very high wind speeds and cumulonimbus clouds around the eye lead to heavy rainfall, which is also known in geographical terms torrential rain. Storm surges in coastal areas with rise in sea level by many meters, and this will prove disastrous to people living closer to the coastal areas. So, impact of tropical cyclones on human environment. Flooding caused by storm surges, heavy rains and swollen rivers. Again, here we are going to look at the damage to infrastructure like roads, bridges, homes, sewage, and communication. Storm surges, sudden rise in sea level. Right, you are going, try to be as faster. Outbreak of waterborne diseases such as cholera, bilharzia, since floods have damaged sewage systems. Disruption of tourism, trade, agriculture, and industry because of flooding. So now we need to put some evacuation measures in place for getting people out of the danger area. This is done by informing public of the risk and evacuating them. Precautions and preventative strategies of tropical cyclones, taking or tracking cyclones and issuing early warnings. It is important that people are warned beforehand that the cyclone is coming. Rescue of people from flooded areas. Right, we are moving to cyclone disaster management. Emergency relief such as give them food, water, medicine, and shelter. Aid or help from international countries for poor countries to help them recover from long-term effects of cyclones. Right, cyclone like tropical cyclone like MLC, mid-latitude cyclone, also goes through 4 stages of development. We are going to just touch on those stages. The first stage is also known as formative stage or initial stage or formative stage. What is it that you can expect in the formative stage? You look at the pressure. This is our isobars. Isobar is a line joining places of the same pressure. And look at the movement, circulation around the eye, clockwise. And the pressure in the center of the system is just above 1000 hectopascal. Low pressure cell develops. In the immature stage, pressure is now well below 1000, is below 1000 hectopascal, and on this instant it is 992 HPA hectopascal. Gale force winds can be expected here. The rotation is clockwise in the southern hemisphere. We go to the third stage, mature stage. Pressure is well below 1000 hectopascal, and on this instant it is 956 HPA. Hurricane force winds can be expected. The worst weather condition are experienced on the leading left-hand quadrant. This is the leading left-hand quadrant. And then we now go to the final stage, maybe happening on reaching the land or on colder surfaces of water. Dissipation will take place, pressure rises again. Pressure starts to rise, speed decreases with favoring friction, moisture is cut off. Right now, we are moving as fast as possible. Okay, this is what we call the cross section through the tropical cyclone. This is the wall of cumulonimbus clouds around the eye. Okay, what is important here is convergence at the surface, which is almost equivalent to divergence in the upper atmosphere. Diverging airflow in the upper atmosphere, here we have convergence of air in the upper atmosphere. But remember, in the center of the eye, because of high pressure that is found here, the air is sinking. But on the wall of the system, we have rising air because this is a low pressure system. So now let us look at the impact of tropical cyclones on humans and environment. Starting first with humans. Loss of lives, outbreak of waterborne diseases such as cholera, disruption of tourism. These are the things that we talk about. Loss of profit to the farmers. This is also an economic impact. Power lines are uprooted. Food security is also insecurity. Less availability of food, unemployment increases, and exports decrease. So this will affect the country's GDP. Environmental impact. Storm surges, sudden rise in sea level, flooding caused by storm surges, heavy rains and swollen rivers, damaged infrastructure like roads, bridges, and sewerage or sewage communication. Fertile soil and crops are eroded away. Erosion is likely to take place. Trees are uprooted. Destruction to the marine biodiversity. Destruction to the ecosystem of the affected area. So now we go to the precautionary measures to be taken before the tropical cyclone. Without any waste of time, these are the precautionary measures. The first one, putting early warning systems beforehand, evacuation plans in place, sandbags set on the beach line, outreach program or campaigns, educational campaigns, extra health service available, extra fire and rescue services available, must make them available. Extra police and security services available, tracking the system throughout the whole process. And then the categories of tropical cyclones are classified according to the following 5 categories. Category 1 up to category 5. Category 1 has got minimal damage, 2 has got moderate damage, 3 has got extensive damage, as you can see this building, 4 has extreme damage with wind speeds of around 209 to 251 kilometers per hour, and category 5, which is the last category, the results are catastrophic with wind speeds exceeding 252 kilometers and more. And then let us look at the management strategies after the system has taken place. These are the management strategies. The first one, you must know that the developed countries can do the following in a very short period of time due to sufficient funds. They have got money, whereas developing countries, because of lack of insufficient money, will take much longer to perform the following strategies. Here are the strategies. The first one, placement of people in refugee camps or temporary shelters, distribution of medication to casualties, distribution of clean water. Remember, the sewage is disrupted. Distribution of sanitary towels, availability of sanitation, health officials, doctors and nurses visit campsites, distribution of food and clothes. Right, this brings us to the end of our discussion on tropical cyclones and mid-latitude cyclones. Welcome back, grade 12s. This time we are going to look at the regional climate of South Africa, and I'm not going to go long on this topic, but I just want to make you aware that there are some concepts that still confuse us, and we should try by all means to not to get confused. The first one is the line thunderstorm, which is also known as the moisture front, and as well as the bergwind. So when you look at this diagram, it shows us two high pressure cells. Under the regional study of South Africa, there are three determinants of weather and climate in South Africa. One of the determinants is the anticyclonic circulation around South Africa. Remember, in the previous discussion we were talking about the cyclonic circulation, but this time around we'll look at the anticyclonic circulation. We have three high pressure cells around South Africa, but on this instance we have this one, which is South Indian High, which is also known as the Mauritius High. We have this high pressure cell, which is known as the South Atlantic High or St. Helena High. The one that we have over the subcontinent in winter is the Kalahari High. But let us look at the line thunderstorm. We are likely to have the following. So the discussion behind this, as you can see here, this is a moisture front, the cold air which is dry, the warm air which is moist, coming from the warm ocean current here. The warm ocean current, obviously we are going to have warm west air which will be driven into the land by anti-clockwise rotating South Indian High. The cold air from the cold Benguela current will be driven into the land by anti-clockwise circulating cell. Okay, so when the two different masses of air meet along the line, we are likely to have warm air rising and the cold air moving underneath the warm air, and consequently we are going to have the formation of clouds and thunderstorm activity that is taking place there. So this is what you call the squall line thunderstorm or line thunderstorm. It occurs around the front, which is referred to as the moisture front. So let us look at the following notes that discusses the line thunderstorm. The first one, on moisture front. In the Atlantic Ocean, the cold air mass that blows from southwestern direction, like I showed you, and in the Indian Ocean we have warm moist air that blows from northeasterly direction. The air mass comes from the Atlantic Ocean, this cold air mass. The warm air mass comes from the Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean, because of warm ocean current, the air mass is warm and moist. This one, Atlantic Ocean, because of the cold ocean current, the Benguela current, the air is cold and dry. So this is influenced by cold Benguela current. The air mass is pushed by South Atlantic high pressure cell cyclone or anti-clockwise circulation into the interior. And on the other side, it is influenced by the Mozambique current, which is a warmer current. This air is pushed by the South Indian high pressure cell. These two air masses meet at the draft axis. Warm air is forced to rise, and the cold air wedges underneath. A line thunderstorm develops along the moisture front with heavy rain associated with cumulonimbus cloud. So now we move to the two other concepts related to the regional study. The first one is the coastal low pressure. Any low pressure along the coast is a coastal low pressure. Number A, these low pressure cells that often travel ahead of a cold front. They often, we don't say always, but they often travel ahead of a cold front. They form off the west coast and travel eastward along the coast and changes coastal weather. Because it is a low pressure, the rotation is clockwise with onshore winds on the west that brings rain and fog, and offshore winds on the east which brings about warm dry conditions. Berg winds are hot dry winds that blows from the interior towards the coast and are warmed up vertically as they descend down the series of mountains around South Africa, which refer to them as the escarpment, the Great Escarpment. So this is where the Berg winds originate, the hot dry wind blowing down the mountains here, and as moving towards the low pressure cell, the coastal low that we see here around this area, and as it descends, it is warmed up vertically at a rate of 1 degree Celsius per 100 meters. So this hot dry wind can lead to dangers of veld fires. Veld fires can take place. So this will be a hazard that will take place around here because of the winds. Okay, temperature drops first by cold front behind the front, cold air behind the front, and the difference in low pressure between interior and coast seasons. What is the season of the occurrence of Berg winds? It is winter, when there is the high pressure cell, the Kalahari, is strongest. What are the results of Berg wind? It then leads to veld fires. What is the solution? This one is interesting, but when cold front approaches, it will lead to the situation come to an end. And then we go to the next one, which is the valley climate. The valley climate, as you can see here on the diagram, it is important to know the following concepts. The first one is aspect of the slope, the direction in which the slope faces. In the southern hemisphere, north-facing slopes are warmer than south-facing slopes. In southern hemisphere, people choose north-facing slopes because they are warmer. Why? They are warmer because the sun is direct or is perpendicular. Middle slopes are preferred. In Katabatic, bottom of the valley has frost and fog. In winter it is frost, and in summer it is foggy conditions. So let us look at the aspect on this diagram. Aspect direction that is facing the sun is warmer. The southern hemisphere, the north facing slope, this is north, is warmer than the slope that is facing south. Look here, the conditions, we have a snowy conditions here on the side that is facing south, but on the side that is facing north, we have the warmer conditions with no snow. Okay, another two concepts that can be confusing is the anabatic winds and katabatic winds. Please let us not make mistake of missing out marks on these two concepts. Anabatic occurs during the day, katabatic at night. For you not to forget anabatic wind, just think about the little girl Anna who goes to school during the day. Those who are forgetful, think about the cat. That cat is, sometimes it's a creepy animal that moves around at night. So these are referred to as downslope winds. These are also known as upslope wind. Please go through that. Urban climates. Let us look at the difference between rural and urban climate. In terms of urban versus rural, temperature-wise, cities are warmer than rural areas. The reason is that the city generates its own heat through these things, concrete, tarred roads, less water bodies because of pollution and less vegetation. Wind speed in the cities is lesser than in the rural areas. Building act as windbreakers. Humidity is less in the cities, less plants, thus less evapotranspiration, less water bodies due to drains, more evaporation due to artificials. Cloud and fog and precipitation, more clouds over the city or urban areas, and also foggy conditions, smog in urban areas. Smog is smoke plus fog. Right, more dust in cities act as hygroscopic nuclei, promoting condensation. We move forward. Sunshine is less over the city, high in the rural areas. High buildings blocks incoming solar radiation, and also more shadow zone. So urban heat island. Why are cities warmer than rural areas? Because the city generates its own heat. Little vegetation or evaporation cause cities to remain warmer than the surrounding countryside. Right. So I think with climate and weather, we have done some justice. Let us move to the next area of study, which is geomorphology. I'm also going to run here because time is not on our side. Geomorphology, it is important that you know your concepts. Concepts such as drainage basin, total area drained by the river system or the river and its tributaries. Catchment, please don't confuse this concept. The area that feeds water into the river, referred to as catchment area. Watershed, high-lying area or a divide, a boundary between two rivers. Interflow, sometimes we confuse these two, interflow with watershed, but this one happens within the drainage basin. Drainage basin separating two drainage basins, the watershed. Confluence, a point where two rivers meet. A source, where a river starts. River mouth, where a river ends. Surface, runoff, process where water runs on top of the earth surface. Groundwater, water found underground. Water table, the top part or saturated part of underground water. Factors influencing surface runoff and infiltration are similar to those that influence the drainage density. The first one is relief, the steepness of the slope. Steep slopes allow more runoff than level slopes. Gentle slopes, more infiltration. So these are the things that I think you can go on your own. So please just remember them. So now moving. We are running. We are not just running, we are running. Let us look at the following. Sometimes we do have challenges regarding the stream orders. Some people do struggle to realize that we number them from outside. This one, it will be 1 because the first one, it will be the first one, the first one, first one. Remember, 1 and 1, it will give us 2. 1 and that 2 will still remain 2. So 1 and 1, it will be 2. But this 2 plus that 2 will give us 3. It is not 4. So this 3 plus 3, it will give us, it will be stream order number 4 at this point, at Y. So these are the things that we need to be careful about. So stream patterns. Stream patterns. We have various stream patterns. Let us look at them. The first one that we are having here, which looks like the branches of a tree, is a dendritic pattern. Looks like shapes of a tree, found in the areas that are uniform resistance to erosion, similar resistance to erosion. It can be sedimentary rock or igneous rock. Radial pattern, it radiates from the center outward. So streams radiate away from high-lying area, like a hill or a volcano. Rectangular pattern, it looks like the main stream and the tributaries bend at right angle. They are found mostly in joints and faults of igneous rocks. Trellis pattern, streams are parallel to each other, found in the areas of alternating folded or sedimentary rocks. Centripetal, they are moving towards the central point. Okay, deranged mat. Another word for deranged, you can say mat pattern. So irregular pattern, found on the flat or marshy areas and have no definite direction. Parallel pattern develops on a steep slope where river flows fast. Tributaries are long and flow next to each other. Right, we go to the next concept, which have something to do with density. The drainage density. What is drainage density? Is the total length of all streams in their drainage basin divided by the basin area. So here we have various types of drainage densities. On the upper part we have the one which is fine and fine textured, and this one is coarse textured. The factors that influence drainage density are almost similar to those that we discussed with infiltration and runoff. So now we look at the river discharge. We have 2 types of discharges. We are also going to look at the types of the river. The first one is turbulent flow, found in areas where the bed of the river is rough and even and has more erosion, whereas laminar flow, where the river bed is even and smooth with less erosion. So this is how it is represented, the laminar flow. Turbulent flow, look at this whirling flow. Okay. Right, types of rivers, we have the permanent river. They flow all season, all through the year, because they can get supply of water from base flow. Episodic rivers, they flow after heavy rainfall, after the episode of heavy rainfall. Periodic rivers, they flow only during the rainy season. Exotic rivers have the flow characteristics of wet areas but run through the dry area. Carib River, Orange River is an example. Okay, we are moving. Stream piracy, river capture. So this is where a more energetic river steals the water of lesser energetic river. So we have two rivers here, River B, which was supposed to go through in that direction, and River B on the other, separated by a watershed. Remember, watershed separate one drainage basin from another drainage basin. So now we've had what erosion towards the watershed. Sometimes this watershed is eroded away, and this stronger river is going to steal the water of weaker river, and therefore a pointed where capture is taking place is referred to as the elbow of capture. Please remember this concept. Now we have the river that has lost water, no longer have supply of water. It is referred to as the misfit stream. The one which river water was stolen is captured stream, and this one is a captor stream. Alright, so now let us look at the impact that is going to be there on the settlement A, the settlement that used to get water from the captured river. Now we are going to experience a shortage of water. Farming will be disadvantaged. Problem with fishing. If you used to live on fishing, you are not likely to be successful fishermen because there is no more enough water. Recreation water skiing games such as those will be at a disadvantage with lesser water. It will have a negative impact on the production of hydroelectricity, less water for industries. What about settlement B, which has now excess water due to the capturing of water? There are chances of flooding take place, erosion will be enhanced, river deposit fertile soil, this is a positive impact, increase in farming activities, positive, the first two negative. So remember, we can have positive impact as well as the negative impact to farming and as well as the economy. So we are moving. Now we look at the river profiles. We have two types of profiles, longitudinal profile as well as transverse profile. So longitudinal profile is the profile of the river as seen from source to north, whereas transverse profile is taken from one bank to another bank. So there are three courses of the river. The upper course. In the upper course, the slope is steep, erosion is vertical, and the valleys there are V-shaped. But in the middle course, the slope is gentle, the river meanders from side to side, erosion is lateral. Here we had downward cutting, here we have sideways cutting. The river grows wider. In the upper course, it grows deeper. In the lower course, the river is flowing on flat surface. Deposition is the most dominant process. The shape is almost flat. So now let us look at the course profile. Course profile, especially in the upper course, it looks like this. In the upper course, from one bank to another, from bank to bank. In the upper course, we have downward erosion, but in the middle course, we have the lateral erosion is the most important, the type of erosion. In the lower course, we have deposition. So this is the direction of flow of the river. The slope which is nearest to where the river is turning is referred to as the slip off. So this is where we are likely to have deposition. The far side of the slope on the other side of the river, when we look at it from one bank to another, this one is likely to have faster flow of water leading to erosion, and it is referred to as the undercut slope. So now I think we have done enough with geomorphology. We can go now to the next area of study, which is the settlement geography. Settlement geography So this is settlement geography. Concepts are important. Like I said earlier, geography is a conceptual subject. You must know your concept. Settlement, what is settlement? Is the grouping of people, building structures. Okay, allow me to do this. Okay, building structures and communication network that function as a single integrated system on a daily basis. Or the simplest definition is a place where people live. Another concept which might be confused with the site, the concept of site, the piece of land occupied or exact piece of land occupied by a settlement is referred to as site. Whereas situation, a settlement in relation to its surrounding. Another concept which is important is the sphere of influence. The maximum area served by a function or by a central place. That area which provides services to the surrounding rural areas is referred to as the sphere of influence. Range, maximum distance from where the business draws its customers. That is a range. Okay, threshold population, minimum number of customers required to support the business. Okay, a function, main activity that people are involved in. The function can be divided into the primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary sectors. So we move to the next classification of settlement. There are 4 ways on how settlement is classified. The first one is according to size and proximity, from the smallest to the biggest, and also according to function, as you can see here. Function, whether it is functional or multifunctional. Classifying them according to size of form. Normally I use the mnemonics of I'm going to write them down for you not to forget. Fa, Ovito, Sime, Conme. There are 8. Farmstead, rural hamlet, village, town, city, metropolis, conurbation, and megalopolis. So this is how not to forget them. Farovito, from the smallest to the largest. Here are these: isolated farmstead, single farm, and outbuildings. Hamlet, a loose grouping of a few farmsteads. Village, dense grouping of farmsteads. Town, dense populated urban areas. The first 3 can be regarded as rural, and the last 5 will be urban. So city, large town where people live and work. Metropolis or metropolitan, main city surrounded by dependent towns. Conurbation, a large town surrounded by coalescence and combination of towns and cities. Megalopolis, a gigantic urban complex formed by coalescence of conurbations, e.g. the eastern seaboard of America. Right, rural settlements is unifunctional and focus on primary activities, e.g. farming, fishing, forestry, and mining. Primary, extraction of raw material from nature. Right, what is the distinction between rural and urban settlements? Rural settlements are unifunctional. They can have one of the following functions: farming, mining, forestry, and fishing. Whereas urban areas are multifunctional. They can have secondary functions like industries and tertiary activities such as the services. Right, patterns. They can be isolated or dispersed. It can be isolated or dispersed. Pattern involves nucleated and dispersed. Isolated and dispersed is the same thing. They can be nucleated and dispersed. This is a nucleated pattern where buildings are closer to one another. Dispersed is buildings are far apart, as you can see on these two diagrams. This one is dispersed or isolated. This one is nucleated or compact. So let us look at the function, meaning activity that people are involved in. These are the functions that you can find. Primary activities, where you extract directly from nature. Examples are these, we talked about them. Secondary activities, processing of raw material from these to make them to be more beneficial. Tertiary activities, provision of services such as research, banks, teaching and health services, etc. We move. We have two types of settlement, the rural settlement and urban settlement. Let us look at this. The rural settlement, factors influencing site, choice of site. Here the factors, availability of water. Remember, we have the dry point settlement and wet point settlement. Wet point is where water is scarce, people are nucleated. Dry point is where the water, we have a lot, water becomes a threat and people choose dry side. Okay. Aspect, the direction, we talked about this. Relief, flat areas are better for farming and settlement. If on mountains, it acts for defense. Remember what happened in Lesotho at Tababisiu. It was a stronghold. Kimusho used to use that as a stronghold for defense purposes. Climate is another factor which influences what? The choice of site. No areas can develop with extreme weather conditions. Climate must be good and crops for crops and animals. You need a pleasant climate. It has to be pleasant. Soil. Fertile soil attracts more farming since production is high. Right, now let us look at the shapes of villages. We can also expect questions, paper 2 questions from these shapes. Be able to identify them. This one is a round village. Settlements develops around a central point. Crossroad or T-junction. Settlements develop along the T-junction and crossroad. Linear. Settlements along the road, along the river or water source or transport networks. Why are middle slope preferred? People always prefer the middle slope. Why? Because in the upper slope it is too cold, temperature drops, increase in height. The temperature decrease with height, not increase. So I want you to correct this one. In the bottom of the valley, there is a danger of flooding, mosquitoes and disease. And it is also too cold because of the invasion in the evening. So let us look what will be suitable way. Next to the river, you can do crop farming, but far away from the river, you can do stock farming. So these are why the middle slopes are preferred. Right, now let us look at the important concept. There is no geography question paper that does not have a question based on rural depopulation. Right, what is rural depopulation? Decrease in number of people in rural areas. When the number of people in rural areas decreases, it is rural depopulation. And it is a result of rural-urban migration. With rural-urban migration, there are two things that will likely to happen. Rural areas will be depopulated and urban areas will be urbanized. So now let us look at the factors that lead to rural-urban migration. Firstly, we have the pull factors. those that attract people to the cities. And we have the push factors, those that forces people to move out of the rural areas. Right, pull factors. Better jobs, please, when you answer this question, don't just write jobs. You're not going to get any mark. Must say better jobs or more job opportunities. At least that will give you marks. But if you say jobs, we don't know whether you are saying fewer jobs or more job opportunities, so you're not going to get any mark. So please make sure of that. More salary, better salaries, yes. But if you say salaries, you're not going to get marks. Better education, better medical facilities, bright lights, entertainment. Okay, the push factors are those that are going to drive you out of the rural areas. Those are mechanization, the use of machines such as tractors, machines such as the harvesters have taken the work of the people who used to do the work manually. Low salaries, natural disasters can force people to move out of rural areas. Crime, the increasing crime in the rural areas. Farm murders, unemployment. So these are the consequences, the results of the rural depopulation. Rural areas, the schools and shops close down, houses are dilapidated, aged people are left behind, farm owners are killed, unemployment, few new investments in urban areas. Because of more people that will have moved there, we are going to have gangsterism taking place, encroachment of squatter settlements, polluted squatter settlements, unemployment, and other social problems that are going to be there, such as rape, such as murders, etc. Okay, the solution can be the following: consult with local people to satisfy their basic needs: shelter, water, food, education. Encouraging tourism. Advertise town to road users. Must be able to do what other cities have done in South Africa. More jobs in maintaining roads, sanitation, bridge, buildings, infrastructure, better educational institutions, provide subsidies to investment. So now we still have some time. Alright. Let us look now at the social injustices in urban areas. When you look here, this is an urban area, and we look here is pollution is taking place. This is an injustice. Look at the effluent that is flown just in front of the buildings. These are the things that will act as the injustice to the urban areas. People who live here will likely to suffer from the effects of pollution from factories and also from people who rob electricity, etc. The richer get richer and the poor become poorer. So now let us look at these concepts are very important. The first one is the land reform programs that have taken place in South Africa. We're going to start first with the land restitution. Aim of the land restitution: people who lost their land in the past, particularly because of the Land Act of 1913. People who lost their land in the past are allowed to get their land back, or given money as compensation. Another thing as a program for land is that land redistribution. Aim of the land redistribution is to reduce 30% of the agricultural land to all other races from whites. So those who were landless initially are given a piece of land. This has to happen over the 15-year period. Land tenure aim is to legally protect the rights and people to use or occupy land which they will not own. Farm laborers are own a sense of security and protected from unlawful eviction. Right? Looking at the urban settlement. Urban settlement, classification of settlements according to function. We have central place town, they provide goods and services to surrounding rural areas, like this one that we are seeing here, surrounding rural areas. Their functions are found here. Specialized cities or town. These functions have one dominant function: education, mining, or recreational. Like for an example, Bloemfontein is an educational town, Welkom is a mining town. Those are the specialized towns. Okay, there are 4 types of trade and transport towns. We're going to look at them. The first one is the gap town. It occurs where there is a gap between mountains. Okay, let me do this. 4 types of trade and transport towns. Remember we did the first ones. It was central place, specialized. Now we look at the transport and trade towns. So this is a gap town. The second one is break of bulk, where one mode of transport is changed into another mode of transport. Junction town, like the R, develop where transport routes converge. Port town develops along the coastline, rivers, lakes, to load or offload goods. So urban profile is the view of the city when you look at the city from the side. Remember, in the central part of the city we have the central business district, the CBD. The CBD is the expensive land. There is a lot of competition there, intensively built. Mostly they are built upward skyscrapers because of lack of space, vertical buildings. But the more you move away from the CBD, the value of the buildings becomes cheaper. Cheaper land value, building horizontal. It is not skyscrapers like it happened with the CBD. So further you move from the city, the buildings become slower and cheaper. Right? So now we are getting there. We are going to move to the land use zones. Yes, this is important. How the area of land is used in the cities. The first one is the CBD. The CBD is the most accessible part of the city. Everyone who goes to the cities will be able to reach the CBD. It has highest buildings, high order functions are found there, low order function as well. We also have industries in the cities. The types of industries that you can get there are light industries just next to the city, heavy industries on the outskirts. The location factors is important of where you place your industry. The light industries don't cause much pollution, but heavy industries, you have to consider the location. Okay? Retail, isolated stores, urban development, outlying business center, the shopping centers. Residential areas can be classified into the high income residential. Normally they are found far away from the CBD. The low income, normally they are nearer to the CBD because of proximity, the transport cost. Informal settlement. Zone of decay found on the edge of the CBD. Old buildings, pollution, function, mixed races, urban renewal. the zone of decay, the area of land that used to be good in the CBD, but now it has lost its value. It's a zone of decay. Right, we have rural urban fringe, between rural areas and urban areas. This is where you are going to get things such as the golf, which needs a lot of space to play, the power station, pollution, cemeteries, airports because of noise, and sewage because of bad odor. Right, I think the following will help us with paper 1 and paper 2. The street patterns. Let us look at the street patterns. I hope that they will push on this, but we have various street patterns. We have radial pattern, the gridiron pattern or grid pattern or block pattern, the irregular pattern. Alright, let us look at the radial pattern. What is it? Streets radiate away from the CBD. Examples are places such as Queenstown. Gridiron pattern, a regular planned street pattern with right angle associated with older cities. Irregular pattern, planned around physical feature. What are the advantages of radial? They allow for easy flow of traffic, equal access to central or the center of the town. Disadvantage of the radial pattern is that traffic congestion can be the order of the day, and it wastes a lot of space. Some buildings or sites might be bigger than others. Okay, gridiron pattern advantages: easy to plan and lay out, easy to find way out, plots are easily subdivided, less wastage of land. Disadvantage: traffic congestion, they waste time and fuel because of stop and go, more accidents are likely to happen, it is monotonous. Irregular pattern advantage is that they are easy, they allow for easy flow of traffic, not monotonous, they are not boring. Disadvantage: easy to get lost, difficult to find direction. So right, so now we go to urban blight. That's the concept that we are going to look at, the urban blight. Urban renewal program to fight urban blight and gas Woodstock residents. But with urban blight, we look at things such as the following. Okay, this best describe the topic that we were discussing earlier. This is the rural urban fringe. This is the CBD of, this is the industrial area. This is rural urban fringe. This is what is likely to be found on the rural area. The airports, the race courses, the sewage dams, the golf courses, and this is a marshalling plain where we have different tracks of railway that are found there. So now let us move in these 5 minutes that I'm having, the informal settlement. Informal settlement is an unplanned residential area. They are also known by other names such as slums, shanty towns, squatter camps, or ghettos. These people live in informal settlement, and the material that they use to make their buildings are the following. They make buildings from wood, plastic, and corrugated iron. Areas where informal settlements are found, they are mostly found in the outskirts of the city, alongside of formal houses. Informal settlement issues or problems are the following. The first one, lack of services, e.g. water, electricity, sanitation. Lack of proper houses. So improper houses is what is happening there. Dangers of fire due to the use of paraffin and candles and open fires. Bad weather during summer and winter. Crime is the order of the day in informal settlement. People there are mostly unemployed. Poverty. Basically, these people are poor, and they also experience floods, especially if they happen to live in low-lying areas. So now these are the problems faced by informal settlement dwellers. Now let us look at the strategies to address the issues of informal settlement. Firstly, the government must work hard to formalize the settlement so that they are able to get services, especially infrastructure, sanitation, etc. And also services. Build the proper houses. Also give them access to RDPs. Provide basic services such as water and sanitation. Relocate those who are living in risk areas. Construct proper roads. These are but some of the strategies that might be used to help people who live in informal settlement. So this is how informal settlement can be like when you look at it from the top. So very congested. Suppose there is a fire outbreak here, the entire area will be affected. So these are but some of the things that can be done. So now finally we come to the last part of our syllabus, which is the economic geography. Even though I think I'll just run over it. Economic geography is divided into different sectors of economy. The sectors of economy are the following: the primary sector, where it is concerned with the extraction of material from nature. Secondary sector, processing and manufacturing. Tertiary sector, provision of services. And quaternary sector, where they provide with high-level expertise and technology. Here are the examples of primary activities: agriculture, mining, forestry, fishing. Industries, construction. Tertiary sector, services, trade and transport. And quaternary sector, scientists, research, information and technology. So this is how the various sectors contributed to South African economy over the past. Agriculture contributed nearly 3%, electricity 4%, construction 4%, and others, as you can see. Mostly the primary sector, which is agriculture and mining, contributed far lesser in recent times to South Africa. Right, so this is the employment structure of South Africa. Be prepared to get graphs such as this one, not this one, but statistics such as this one, to be able to interpret these statistics. Looking here, this is the tertiary sector in South Africa. This is secondary sector and primary sector, which contributed how much? 5.09%, secondary 22.91%, and tertiary 72.01%. Let us look at these diagrams. In developing countries, the one that you did in grade 11, more of the contribution comes from the primary, secondary is a fraction, and tertiary is just a little. But developed countries, tertiary contribute more. South Africa, where South Africa is I believe South Africa is right here among the developed countries. Okay, when we compare South Africa with other countries, look at secondary sector, it is not far away from other countries, except this African country, Cameroon. And in terms of the employment structure, South Africa is almost similar to Japan. You know, Japan is one of the highly developed countries in the world. So now, agriculture, the factors favoring and hindering agriculture, be able to differentiate between different types of farmers: small scale farmers, subsistence and commercial, low farming production, small contribution to GDP. Whereas large scale farmers, they predominantly commercial, high farming production, contribute the most to the GDP. These are the factors that favor agriculture. The first one is supplier of employment, both directly and indirectly, high demand for products, fertile floodplains, high summer temperatures help to grow, availability of labor, research, irrigation schemes, ports and airports. Factors hindering: low rainfall, soil erosion, natural disasters, pests, HIV and AIDS, fires. So I think grade 12s, with economic geography, that is your ticket to getting all the good marks in your exam. I know that it is the easiest part of our geography, and I know that you have prepared well, and I would like to wish you all the best of luck. I know that geography will always be number one in the country. Free State Province, Montreal District and other districts, I know that you have the teachers, they have done their what they were supposed to do, and you are ready for the exam on Thursday. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you.